So here I am as the central powers at the beginning of turn three. This is kind of our map. I've made some great progress in France, and Mark has had the Russians invade Austria Hungary. So let's go through the log file. First, I have to complete the siege phase for Antwerp, where I have an army. Um, I believe I'm looking for greater than one, a die roll greater than one, modified by a -2 DRM. Um, I'm not sure if that's right, but I roll a two and the fort is not destroyed. I think I did that right because I think you have to roll greater than the besieging army's defense factor. I think I got that right. Mark can correct me if I'm incorrect. So now I did manage during my first two turns to spend enough points that the uh, limited war deck is added to my overall deck. That's huge. That gives me a big leg up on the allied powers. So, drawing up the cards, and my first card I'm going to play is Madi Hari. Let me show you my hand so you can see that. Let me bring that into the screen. There we go. So I've got the Falkenhayn card, which I can only play after Mark plays Moltke, which he has yet to do. Severe weather. Sar takes command, which again I can only play if the Russian capitulation markers moved along the track. So that's somewhat dependent on Mark. But both of Falkenhayn and Sar takes command are 4 ops points, which is big. Um, so therefore, I got wireless intercepts as a combat card, mobilization, another four of German reinforcements, and then a couple of limited war, and then I just played Mati Hari. So that's kind of the deal. So now I got to send the file back to Mark, and he will then enable Mati Hari, and we'll take a look at those together. So there you go. So Mark, as a result of my play of Madi Hari, has revealed his cards. He's got Russian reinforcements, severe weather, and Putin combat cards. Blockade, which is a big one that I think I have a counter for. So I got to be aware of that. Moltke, that's one I have a counter for. So we'll see if he plays that. Two Russian reinforcements, two more. And remember, you can only play one reinforcement card per round, and then the Rape of Belgium, but can only be played if I played Guns of August, which I did. But I think that card can only be played the first two turns, so I don't think he can play it for the ops. Um, so Mark's gonna have to play Blockade to get the 2 points because he's trying to get limited war cards in his deck as well.
Hello and welcome back to the fall 1914 installment of Paths of Glory. And here we are skipping over the first couple of cards. The Allies played Blockade to subtract 1 VP during the war status phase of each winter turn, and also give the Allied powers 2 valuable points on the general records track. So you can see over here in the bottom left, the Allied war status has moved up to 3. It is still not quite breached the limited war threshold yet. I need to do that this turn. I think I cannot. The central powers are already there, so I cannot leave them too long getting access to the better cards without me getting access to the limited war deck. So quick look at my cards here. I do have the Rape of Belgium is 4 action points card, but more importantly, it will, if I play it for the event, it will give me the two the needed 2 points on the it'll move me forward 2 on the general records track. and pushed me actually above CP, but well over the boundary and well into limited war. So that has to be played for the event this turn. But on this is the second card play of the turn for me, and up in the zooming in on the western front here. I can zoom in. There we go. We've got, I've played Molka for 3 action points, so the French in Verdun are going to attack the rather weakly held Metz. The destroyed fortress of Metz is only held by, location is only held by 1 corps, so that should go pretty well for the French. Oh, one other thing, the mandatory offensives have been rolled this turn we remembered for the Allied powers. The French have to make an offensive or lose a VP, and the Central Powers, the Austro Hungarians, have to make an offensive or lose a VP. So on the Western Front, the French will be satisfying the mandatory offensive, and on the Eastern Front over here, the there will be a move. The Third Army is on the move, and then the Russian Eighth Army will be attacking the depleted Fourth Army, but into the mountains. So there is a 1 left shift for the attackers as they're attacking into good defensive terrain. So moving on, let's see what we get. Zoom out just a touch. There we go. The Russian Third Army is on the move and moves through to Munkacs and from Lemberg, so from here to here, and then we'll move on to the attacks. So over on the Western Front, we'll do this one first. So Verdun, we've got an attack of 3, and so that will be on the army table versus 1 for the Germans on the core table. We are attacking into wooded terrain. You can just see that little icon here, peeping over the similar to this one, wooded terrain, which means that the Verdun, the army, should they move, the French, should they be successful, advance into there, they will have to stop once they get into the terrain. They can't advance through the forested terrain. All right, so let's see how the French do. So it's 3 on the army table, and they roll a 4, so that inflicts 3 losses on the German corps. So that will eliminate the corps, of course, because it can only have it's got only 1 combat factor. So that and the corps, even if it were to roll a 6, cannot inflict sufficient losses to do any damage at all to the French Fourth Army. So the corps is eliminated, and we will not move into. The French could advance, but will not advance into Metz. I think if they did, they'd obviously be a little bit exposed. So subject to being cut off. For example, the 7th Army could just stroll into Verdun, and so obviously a bad move to advance into Metz. But it does leave a hole in the French lines, which potentially this corps next turn could, with the more mobile corps, could go 1, 2, even 3, 4, and would put Allied control in these 3 hexes here, these 3 regions here, and that would cut off completely all these German forces. So the Germans will have to react to that next turn to prevent that from happening. All right. So over here, we've done the move, and now because you always do the moves first and then the attacks. So the Russians will be attacking the Fourth Army, and once again, as a reminder, they are attacking into the mountains. And so, just before the attack, both sides have the opportunity to play battle cards, so to speak, and I do not have any to play, but Doug does. He plays a severe weather combat card. So if we have a quick look at this card down here, defending units in a mountain space in fall, winter, out of the way. or a swamp space in spring fall, get a +2 DRM. So this is a mountain space, and it is fall. So the defending Fourth Army here will in fact get a +2 DRM to their roll. So with that in mind, the Russians roll a 3, the Eighth Army rolls a 3, and that's going to inflict 2 losses. So that will reduce the Fourth Army here to a fresh core. And then so there's a bit of back and forth here in the log, so bear with me. The Austro-Hungarian Fourth Army responds and rolls a 3, and that is actually converted to a 5 because of the combat card. So they also inflict 2 losses. So it's a standoff, stalemate here, 2 losses each. So the 2 losses are the effect of that on the Fourth Army is going to be reduced to a core, and the effect on the Eighth Army is it is going to be flipped over to its other side. And there you have it. That's the final result. And of course nobody retreats and nobody advances because the losses were inflicted on each side were the same, 2 each on each side. So that's it for action round 2 for the Allies, and I'll be back to Doug to see what he's got in store for me in action round 3.
So here we are at the start of turn three, the first 3 month turn, action round three for the CP. And as you can see, I've just played the card Falkenhayn for ops points, 4 ops points. So one of my strongest cards. I have these cards remaining that you can see there on screen. So let me recenter the map so that you can see what I did. I've already played an action marker there in Austin for my first um, action or ops point. Um, and then what did I do? I think which would be um so that's going to be 10 German units attacking 6 for the Brits. Their first army and the BEF Corps that still survives there in Calais. And I rolled a 4. But as Mark points out, I'm attacking a swamp. I guess Calais is a swamp. So it's a 1L shift for the attacker. um, the Allies only roll a 1, so not very good. So, in essence, the Germans inflict at least 5 losses, and the Brits inflict 3. I'm sorry, they inflict 4 with the table change that Mark went. So, a win for the Germans. Um, we see these go out. Um, and you'll also notice in terms of my other ops points, and for some reason this didn't get in the log. Um, I'll point it out here. Cambrai moved there. The German army moved there. Then I had an Austria-Hungary army here in Sarajevo, moved them up to Novi Sad, and then I moved away an Austrian-Hungary army in Tarnoval down to Garnice. So for some reason I didn't log those. So sorry about that. But the losses keep piling up here. So what you saw, let's see, did I take the losses? Yeah, here we go. So the BEF then exits the scene, is completely eliminated, gone from the game forever, and the British First Army takes a flip. So they just keep losing. The German army there in Ostend takes a flip as well. Um, so the retreat, I think we just one space left to retreat. So there's where we put Mark. He went through Amiens and down to Rouen. Um, and I advanced into Calais, further pressuring um, the British Army and the French Army. So, and then here I clean up. So, call the cabs as they did in World War One. the defense of Paris was due to the famous incidents where all the cabbies took the army out. So there we go.
And we are back. The Allies are back. It's the fall 1914 action round three. The Germans have pushed the British back, captured Calais, and the British First Army depleted, has fallen back to Amiens, and the British Expeditionary Force Corps has been eliminated. So the pressure is still on from the Germans on the Western Front. They are totally ignoring what's going on the Eastern Front. Well, let's see if I can do something about that. So playing a Russian reinforcements card, not for the event but for the ops, and we're going to try and entrench in Amiens. And over on the Eastern Front, we're going to keep the pressure on. The Russian Third Army will be attacking into the core in Uzhgorod and Belgrade. The Serbians, who arguably started this whole thing. Not really, the Austro Hungarians started this whole thing. But they are going to attack into Timishvar. All right, so we'll do the move actions first, which will be over here again in the in Amiens. The loss factor of 3 means I have to roll a 1, 2, or 3 to successfully entrench. So let's see on a 1d6, let's see what we get. And we roll a 1, so that's good. That will hopefully discourage the German Second and Fourth Army from attacking Amiens, or at least inflict more losses. And so we'll place there you see, we've placed the entrenchment marker. And if we'd failed, we'd have got a +1 DRM marker for next turn, assuming we were still in Amiens. So it would have been, we would have successfully entrenched on a 1, 2, 3, or 4. But we didn't need that. We were entrenched off the bat. So back over to the attacks on the Eastern Front. So Belgrade. Belgrade is attacking Timishvar. It is 2 on the army table. And the roll is... oh, right. I'm playing a combat card. So Putnik. So may only be played in 1914 and 1915. The Serbian units get a +1 to their roll for attack or defense. So +1 to my dice roll here. And so I roll a 1. Well, I'm going to need that +1. So that is that inflicts a 2. Well, that's increased to a 2. But even so, it only inflicts 1 loss on the the Austro-Hungarian corps here, and the corps cannot do well enough to, it's not strong enough to inflict any losses on the, rolling on the core table, it cannot inflict any losses on the Serbian army. So the corps is flipped and will retreat 1. I guess technically I should fix that. Let me see the corps. If they were to roll a 5 or a 6, they would inflict 1 hit on the Serbian, no effect on the unit, but it would mean that the Austro-Hungarian corps would not have to retreat. So let's do a quick dice roll here and see what happens, to see if I can roll a 5 or 6 to prevent the Austro-Hungarians from retreating. 2. So no. So they do in fact retreat. 1. So that is correct. It is good. We'll not have to fix that. All right. So the Austro-Hungarians will not advance, because if they were, then the Serbians will not advance into Timishvar, because if they did, then the Austro-Hungarians would take the opportunity of advancing into Belgrade, the undefended Belgrade. So now we'll move on to the Russian Third Army attacking into the mountains of Uzhgorod. And this is a 3 on the army table. And let's see if they're fighting. Their rolling can be better. 5, much better. So that is 3 losses. That's going to totally obliterate the Austro-Hungarian corps. And the corps, of course, cannot hit back. So it is eliminated. And the Third Army will advance into Uzhgorod. Okay, so keeping more pressure on the Austro Hungarians, but while still maintaining while still maintaining a solid front. There's no holes in the line here, which here, here. There's nothing for there's no breakthrough path for the Austro-Hungarians because that's something that has to be avoided, especially on the Eastern Front, because you do not want at the end of the card plays, do not, at the end of the or the supply phase, the attrition phase, it may be called, if units that are out of supply are just eliminated. So you do not want that to happen. All right, so removing the activation markers, and that will be back to the central powers to see if they are finally going to respond to anything that's going on the Eastern Front, or whether they are going to carry on with their progress, their good progress, I must say, to the very thinly defended Western Front. This is down here, for example. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to need to um, get some replacement points this turn for sure to beef up my depleted units. I've got fairly good, fairly strong force in Paris, a reserve, but and I'm holding on grimly in Verdun, but do seem to be outnumbered in multiple spots, like up in Amiens, and of course Belfort is weakly held here, but no pressure has been applied by the Germans on that side either. But let's see, very interesting contest so far. Let's see what Doug has up his sleeve as we move on to action round 4.
Here we are, still turn three, action round four for the CP, and I play the German reinforcements and put another German army in Essen.
Here we are in action round 4, fall of 1914. Simple card play for the Allied powers. As I mentioned, I needed to move up on the general records track, the Allied war status. So I've played the Rape for Belgium card. You can see it down here on the left. Rape for Belgium is worth 2 points on a general records track, and so it will also subtract 1 VP, which that's removing 1 VP from the central powers. So the Allied war status is now at 5. It's above limited war status. It's actually ahead of the CP, and so I will have the limited war deck will be shuffled into my draw deck for the turn 4, which is good news. And I'm on the next, the total war deck will have access to the total war deck once the Allied war status or the CP war status reaches or exceeds 11. And there's the VP score there, moved back down from 14 to 13. So if it ever gets to 0, it's Allied powers have an automatic victory. If it ever gets up to 20, it's a CP automatic victory. And do remember that the winter turn, which will be at the end of the next turn 4, the is it still available here? The markers here track what's going on, and so if you look up here, the blockade was also played on turn 3, so that will every winter turn going forward give the Allied powers 1 VP, or in other words, subtract 1 VP from the total. So that's the quick turn for the Allies on turn 4, and it is back to Doug for turn 5. Oh, just one reminder. I hope he doesn't forget. But the Allies have made their mandatory offensive. The French did attack into Metz earlier this turn, but so far the Austro-Hungarians have not attacked on the Eastern Front, and so they have to do that. Otherwise, the Allied powers, with Central powers rather, will lose 1 VP.
Okay, action round five in turn three for the CP. There you see my hand, and I'm going to play Austria-Hungary reinforcements. Place that army in Budapest.
Okay, turn 5 of 6. A quick series of Card plays here as both sides are gearing up for more bloodshed in the future. The Germans have just played reinforcements in Essen, and then reinforcements on Budapest, maybe gearing up for their Austro-Hungarian offensive. I don't know. It's getting late in the turn for this. So that was their last two card plays, and the CP. Well, I'm going to follow suit, and I'm going to play my Russian reinforcements card for the event, and I'm going to place two Russian armies in Kharkov. The ninth and the 10th Army will prepare to join the fray, and that's it. And now we're over to action round six, where Doug really has to do something offensive on the Austro-Hungarian front.
Okay, turn three, the last action round for the CP. Interesting map. I've only got three cards left, so I'm gonna elect to play for two ops, the 11th Army card. And what I'm gonna do is mark my just placed reinforcement army in Essen to move, and then I'm gonna have my Austria-Hungary armies in Novi Sad attack Belgrade, the brave Serbians. Um, what that will create, there's my movement out of Essen into Aachen and into Sedan. So, what that places is a powerful two armies for Germany in Sedan threatening Verdun. Because I found Verdun just keeps, as was historical, it's just a tough nut to crack. So rather than try and do an end around, which Mark has reinforced there, Barley Duke, I think maybe as I move forward, I'll just try to bang away at Verdun as the German army did, because he's entrenched over here at Amiens, as you can see there on the map. So that might be a tough nut to crack. So let me make sure. Yeah, the camera angle is such that in my attack, I've got the Austrian-Hungary army, 6 factors versus Serbia, 2 factors defense, and one for the fort. Let me bring the table up so you can see 6 tables, 6 to 8. Some pretty good results there. At a minimum, I'm going to inflict some damage, and he would be defending at 3, which is over here. Which again, wide range, and this is one of the kind of quirky things, in my opinion, about Paths of Glory, the CRT table, um, that if he rolls a 6 on the 3, that would inflict 4 losses. And even though I have the double the strength attacking, if I roll a 1 or a 2, I only inflict 3 losses and then get hurled back. Um, Wild. But it's one of the most popular games at GMT, and certainly for anybody that wants to recreate grand strategy World War One, I think this is the best game, or at least the best game I've played. Admittedly, this is the only one I've played. So there we go. Trying to build a little tension here for the die rolls. The CP rolls a 4. That's great. I won't get that horrible result that I just mentioned. Could happen. And Mark gets a strong die roll at 5. So that means that the AH inflicts 4 factors. Serbia only inflicts 3. So there's going to be at least a 1 box retreat. So I'll be able to move into Belgrade, which, as you know, was really the assassination there in, I believe it was Belgrade, of the Archduke, is what precipitated this horrible, horrible conflict. So there you see the Belgrade unit flips, and then takes the second loss, eliminating the army. It forms into a core, and then the core has to retreat. And then let's see, I have to take my hit in one of my armies, so that army cannot advance. It could later move in there, and then you see my Austrian army move into Belgrade, putting it under siege. So I'll have an attempt at the end of this turn for a besieging roll.
And here we are on the last card play of fall of 1914. Just going back to the CP turn, eagle-eyed viewers may have noted, but the fifth and sixth Austro-Hungarian army, the Austro-Hungarians do eventually go onto the offensive, and so they will be satisfying their mandatory offensive this turn, and they are attacking the Serbs in Belgrade. So the Putnik card down here is still in effect. Serb units get a +1 DRM for attack or defense. So on the dice rolls, as rolled, there will be 4 losses inflicted by both sides. So the Serbs do not have to retreat because it's 4 and 4, and the Austro-Hungarians have to either they flip one army that absorbs 2 losses. They can either eliminate the 6th army and replace it with the corps, or they can eliminate or they can flip the 5th army, and then they'll have two armies still on the field. A decision Doug will have to make, but the Serbs will they are defending Belgrade still, slightly battered, but they're still in there fighting. All right, so with that, let's go over to the Allied response. Okay, here we are at action round 6 for the Allied powers. The last card play of fall 1914, and I'm playing the Russian reinforcements card for 2 ops. Cannot play this for the event because I already earlier this turn played a Russian reinforcements card for the event. So just going to move around a few armies here. We're going to move around some the reserves from Paris, move them into the front line, and we're going to move the Russians over in the eastern front in Kharkov closer towards their front lines. So the Russians set off Kiev, Zhytomyr, and they end up in Dubno. That's the 2 armies, the 9th and the 10th armies. And over on the western front, we're going to move one French army into Amiens, and another army into Bar-le-Duc to bolster the line. And so here we go with those moves. There's the first army moves into Amiens, and then the 10th army is on the move into Bar-le-Duc. So that is the 2 action points, and that concludes the turn. That concludes turn 3. Fall of end of 19. Is it the end of the year? Fall. Actually, it says fall of 1914, so that is actually the end of 1914. We'll recommence the next video in the winter of 1915. So things are looking well, still pretty tense for the Allies on the Western Front, with fairly ominous amounts of German troops threatening to break through multiple places. My efforts to divert the Germans on the Eastern Front have not really played out. But the downside of that for the Central Powers is that the Austro-Hungarians seem to be very hard pressed, especially with the arrival of the 9th and 10th armies next turn. And also, I'm looking forward to back down here the limited war. I'll be getting access to the limited war deck because the Games Records track, the Allied war status now is successfully above the limited war point, and in fact 1 point ahead of the Germans. So anyway, that is the end of this episode, this video. I hope you enjoyed it so far, and please tune in for the next episode, which will get posted as soon as we can.